Shabbat Shalom. Do I
Shabbat
have any
Shalom.
volunteers to light the Shabbat candles this evening? Anyone want to engage in that mitzvah? I don't want to put anyone on the spot. So, can you all hear me?
No,
Yes,
You can.
not so well,
Okay.
except I think you said you wanted a volunteer to light the candle.
Well, you heard that correctly. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
I feel like you're in my eardrum, but that's fine.
Well,
That's great.
we have a problem acoustically in that some people, including myself, I have hearing loss. And
I don't hear so
therefore-
well either, Rabbi, it's okay.
Therefore, I wear hearing aids.
Like the candle.
So, no, let me finish for just a second, please.
What?
Now, I'm just trying to explain something about,
Okay.
for some people, this is gonna sound very loud. And for other people, it's gonna sound just right. We have an aging congregation, Rabbi included in that group. And, you know, my hearing, I have hearing loss, and therefore I wear a hearing aid. Some people, you know, they just don't want to wear it for lots of different reasons, which I respect. I was taught early on in rabbinical school and thereafter, there's no point in giving a sermon if people can't hear it. So if this helps people but doesn't drive other people, we're trying to find the right balance. But can everybody hear this, and is it okay in terms of volume?
Perfect.
Great, okay, so we'll continue with this.
It's a
Right,
little loud.
so let's begin on page 120 with the lighting of the Shabbat candles.
We'll do just one down for him.
That's it. Oh, I would do that, I'm thinking,
Well, I don't know where it is.
you wanna turn down the volume?
Oh, it's on the other side. I'm just gonna turn it on. Did I turn it off?
No, I don't think, no, I think it's okay.
Okay. Want to make it pleasant for everyone, so.
That was last week.
Rabbi, you need to give a course on how to light a match.
That one just exploded.
You all right?
Yeah, I don't know where it landed. It was like doing a short thing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshenu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who calls us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Let us turn now to page 128. Ma yafta hayom, how beautiful the day is, how beautiful the Shabbat is.
Shabbat shalom,
joyful, Lachadodi, come my beloved, to welcome the Sabbath bride, page 138, and the first two stanzas, and then the last stanza on page 139. And on the last stanza, of course, we rise and we open the back door and we welcome the Shabbat. We're going to continue with the Baruch Hu on page 146, followed immediately by the Shema and the Haftarah on page 152. 146.
La
Baruch Shem Kavod, page 152 and page 153. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Page 154.
בכל לבבך וכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיינו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם מאוד הידיך והיו לי תותפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים.
And let us join in prayer on page 157, the middle of the page. Together, in a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. We continue now with the beautiful Hashkivenu prayer, page 106.
Hashkivenu Adonai
join in prayer, page 161, middle of the page. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into your shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Please rise for the you may be seated for this. This is the Vishamru on page 162. What better way to find us a place to rest than the timelessness of Shabbat? And we're going to continue now silently with the Amidah. It begins on page 164 all the way through to page 180. We're going to do this silently. You can either use the prayer book or, of course, in your own meditations to God, your own reflections in this time of trouble, in this time of difficulty. The reason for a silent Amidah tonight, number one, it's no violation, actually, in traditional temples, whether it's Orthodox or conservative. This part is done silently. Our tradition is to do it out loud, the first part. But the other reason is because I have a rather lengthy sermon tonight, so I'm sensitive to that. So we're going to continue silently from page 164 to 180, or in your own silent meditations. If it's your custom to stand, please feel free to do so, or you can remain seated. Just by way of introduction, as I indicated just a few minutes ago, this sermon will be a little bit longer. You should also know, perhaps by now, maybe many of you know, that I don't create sermons based on, well, this is a special Shabbat or it's this or that. Some of my better sermons, I think, have been given on a Friday night when there's been 6 people present and maybe a few people online. And some of my less inspired sermons have been when there have been many people. It's just sort of the luck of the draw. One really never knows. You write from the heart, you write from what Rabbi Arthur Hertzberg, a famous American Jewish historian, said about the study of history. The study of history, he thought from his purpose, was to solve problems that are in the present. And so one, writes about things that they are troubling, or things that hit them in a certain way after study and after reflection. So many people don't know this, and this reason will become obvious. I don't dedicate my sermons as a normal rule. Rachmaninoff dedicated his third piano concerto, his most famous concerto, I think, to a famous pianist at the time, Joseph Hoffman, and he wanted Joseph Hoffman, who was one of the great pianists of his generation, to play it. However, Joseph Hoffman felt his hands were too small and didn't really like it very much and never played it, even though the whole concerto was dedicated to him. Likewise, I'm dedicating this sermon to a Hoffman who is actually, unbeknownst to me, present here today, because he inspired it, and you'll see why. There are so many dimensions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for me to discuss tonight. Still, one grows out of the demonstrations across college campuses regarding support for Palestinians and the failure of some university presidents, principally in the Ivy League, to outright condemn these activities, as well as those of the atrocities that Hamas committed that precipitated the tragic situation that we have today. As a result of the perceived failures of these leaders, wealthy, predominantly Jewish men have withdrawn their financial support. These men are all billionaires, include John Huntsman, Mark Rowan, and Leslie Wexner. I'm sure others are now, quote, closing their checkbooks as well. As one who worked at Dartmouth, when our Hillel was part of Dartmouth, I can only tell you that alumni relations, especially at private institutions, depend greatly, despite their sizable endowments, on annual donations from its wealthiest donors. What are the size of these endowments? Harvard's present endowment is $50.7 billion. University of Pennsylvania, $20.7 billion. And where I work, Dartmouth, lags behind at $8.1 billion. It should give us pause to reconsider the purpose of a liberal arts education, especially in these troubled times when, as American Jews, so much is at stake. Now, I was trained to never give a sermon that was not based on the Torah. But it's difficult to find passages that relate to a liberal arts education regarding the Torah. But nevertheless, I asked myself, and we should be asking ourselves, Is there anything that suggests an attitude of evolving liberalism in the narrative of the Torah? And my tentative answer is yes. There appears to be an evolving movement from strict obedience to a partnership, often a tense one, between humanity and God. For example, in this week's Torah portion, God tells Noah to build an ark to save a remnant of creation, for God will destroy every living creature due to ongoing corruption. Noah does as he is told, and the author, with the capital A for those who believe the Torah is from Mount Sinai, seems to hold the former in high regard, describing Noah as a righteous man. Noah does not disagree, challenge, or meekly suggest another way. Instead, he builds an ark, puts his family in there along with different species of animals, and a new world order appears after 40 days and 40 nights. One might suggest that the relationship at this point between humanity and God is parent and obedient child. God commands, the human being does as they are told. Let us now move to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Unlike in the Noah narrative, the author describes God as contemplating whether to tell Abraham that he will destroy these two cities because of their evil. Abraham approaches God, with the former politely suggesting that God withholds such destruction if righteous people may be found there. Abraham is gentle at each step, as perhaps a child negotiating with their parent. Abraham suggests that these towns should not be destroyed if there may be found 10 righteous individuals in these cities. God agrees. Tragically, the result is terrible destruction, save for Lot, Abraham's nephew, and Lot's family. So there's a little movement. There's a little argument, an attempt to persuade God. However, the most detailed relationship in the Torah narrative is Moses, God, and leading the children of Israel from bondage. The author describes Moses as a humble man, slow of speech and tongue, reluctant and uncertain to do God's bidding before the all-powerful Pharaoh. God is undeterred, and for some untold reason, God appears to need Moses, unlike the previous stories. So Moses and God enter into a kind of partnership. Moses could not defeat Pharaoh on his own and lead the people to Sinai and Israel without God's help. And again, for some unknown reason, God does not appear to be able to do so without Moses. Their relationship is not filled with love. I would describe it more as a search for justice and a search for righteousness. It is a quest that begins in Egypt, continues to Sinai, and then a 40-year generational journey to the end of the promised land. And this search for justice and righteousness, not necessarily love, was not resolved then, and sadly, it is not today. Let me bring us now to the heart of the matter, and I want to acquaint you with James Friedman. I met James Friedman, Zichrona Livracha, may his memory be for blessing, who was then president of Dartmouth College, and yes, Jewish, at a luncheon at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in June of 1998. He received an honorary doctorate of humane letters at the same ceremony that I received my PhD. He was asked to say a few words at lunch. He stood up, thanked everyone, and said, "I'm going home to Dartmouth with 2 gifts. The first is this honorary doctorate, of which I'm truly honored. The other is I'm returning with my new rabbi." Dartmouth had just hired me, and I'd never met James Friedman before. Under his leadership, about 6 years before I arrived, the Roth Center for Jewish Life was constructed and then opened, I believe, in 1996, after centuries of having developed a reputation as a place that did not welcome Jewish students. of which there is much truth to that part of its history. A brief history of James Friedman, so you have some understanding of who this man is, from an all-knowing source, Wikipedia. James Friedman is a graduate, was a graduate of Harvard College and Yale Law School. He served as dean of the University of Pennsylvania Law School from 1979 to 1982, before becoming the 16th president of the University of Ohio from 1982 to 1987, and then the 15th president of Dartmouth College from 1987 to 1998. At Iowa and Dartmouth, Friedman sought to create, as the New York Times described, a haven for intellectuals with mixed results. Friedman was a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the American Philosophical Society. I'd like to take this opportunity to read just a few excerpts from his book, Liberal Education and the Public Interest. In this work, he describes the anti-Semitic policies of the Ivy League schools, even those at Dartmouth, that resulted in quotas, no exemptions for religious holidays, even Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, thus making these elitist schools an unwelcoming place for those Jews wanting to break this particular glass ceilings. But turning away from that, and there is a rather extensive section in this book about anti-Semitism at Ivy League institutions, I want to turn more to his thoughts on the function of a liberal education. And I want to quote just a few excerpts from his book. These can be found, if you're interested, on pages 56 and 57. He writes, someone once asked Woodrow Wilson when he was president of Princeton what the function of a liberal education ought to be. Wilson replied, to make a person as unlike one's father as possible. He goes on, what he meant, meaning what Friedman thought Wilson meant, was that liberal education ought to make a person independent of mind, skeptical of authority and received views, prepared to forge an identity for themselves, and capable of becoming an individual not bent upon copying other persons, even persons as persuasive as one's father. He continues, but it is not the baleful omnipresence of the media and compulsive urgency of the contemporary world that warps public discourse and makes the reflective temper of liberal education more essential than ever before. This was written, I believe, in the late 1980s. Our society has descended into polarities of thought that do not serve us well. Polarities in political views, religious tenets, and cultural attitudes. These polarities make social discourse and companionable community more awkward to sustain, and think of how that applies to our own religious community and other religious communities, even under the same tent. They make consensus and compromise difficult to achieve. They make us worse listeners than we ought to be. Too much of our political discourse is rancid and mean-spirited, displaying a common denominator of division between races and nationalities, between young and old, between immigrant and native born, between the affluent and the poor. When divisions such as these are exploited for their short-term political potential, the ideals of citizenship are defamed. That, he writes, is why a liberal education seeks to impress upon students that one of the most essential words in the English language is perhaps. And that we would all do better if we prefaced our most emphatic statements with that modest qualifier. Liberal education teaches the importance of tempering profound convictions with a measure of tolerance and a judicious sense of humility. He concludes, Oliver Wendell Holmes once wrote, I therefore define the truth as the system of my limitations and leave absolute truth for those who are better equipped. Moses, Judaism, and liberal education. The Torah and all the subsequent sacred literature that evolved from our most holy document reveal uncertainty and yet an unrelenting quest at every turn to approach an understanding of God's will. And this will seems to require human partnership for unknown reasons. It is that very foundation of unknowability and uncertainty that perhaps should guide our approach. Our sacred narratives and literary works place us on this path of uncertainty as the pathway to truth, a truth that we believe may ultimately be filled with justice and righteousness. Paraphrasing the Talmud, with reason, with question, and dialectical discourse should fill the houses of study in our sacred texts in times of peace. How much the more so should we do so in times of peril? I will close with the following story. Linda Sarsour, a Palestinian activist, came to Dartmouth to speak. Naturally, Jewish students, especially the more politically conservative ones, were outraged. They discussed various strategies and decided to protest outside and inside during the lecture. At times they booed, but they were respectful. One student, an ardent Zionist, rose and challenged the speaker. Of course, Miss Sarsour had the upper hand. She had a captive audience that deeply admired her, but I deeply admired the student for doing so. But what was more impressive was that after she finished her talk, the two engaged separately in a half-hour-long conversation, and each, I would like to think, walked away with a better understanding and sensitivity for the other. Liberal education is for that very purpose. I know that some of these organizations are indeed funded by Palestinian organizations outside of the college, and some bent on the destruction of Israel. Still, I caution us because the environmental setting of college is to open our young people's minds, and that's a process. And it's a process to critically examine their own truths in light of other truths. An Israeli professor at Dartmouth in Jewish studies spoke at a Friday night gathering during the last invasion. I think it was either Lebanon or Gaza, I forget. An individual came, not part of the college, an adult, and was obviously hostile to Israel. And when it was opened up for Q&A, he gave a speech calling Israel an apartheid state. The word apartheid is an anathema to all of us, myself included. But Professor Ehud Ben-Or, an Israeli, kept us calm as only he could, and he answered, yes, Israel indeed engages in a kind of apartheid, but it's not the apartheid that you compare it to. That is South Africa. The history and the circumstances are quite different. His answer taught me something, and I'm sure the Jewish and non-Jewish students who were present. We need to value the word perhaps in all of our discourse. We must embrace an ethos stating, I am not sure of the very assumptions that form the basis for my opinion or my truth. So in these troubled times, let us not be afraid to embrace uncertainty and caution with its related anxiety. Let us again embrace uncertainty, and it comes with this anxiety. And these are the very foundations of a liberal education. And let us embrace that as a path towards peace. Amen. Music and sacred music brings us to a space that words cannot. Beautiful. We continue with the Mishaberach prayer, a prayer for healing, page 371. We pray for the healing of Rhoda Bennett, Harold Fink, Lori Weisberg, Maggie Boraz, David Cherniak, Dr. John Johnson, Mark and Hetty Blinderman, Jennifer and Amy Sundberg, Pam Fisher, Bettina Prager, Alice Glass, Cheryl Broom, Elizabeth Kaiser, Alan Lewis, Emily Fink, Rick Finn, Mike Ware, Larry Miller, Bruce Glover, Joseph Kenny, Aline Moran, Jennifer Guggenbiller, Elaine Berman, Aaron LeMay, Terry Hawkins, Carol Zimmerman, Ben Hill, Lowell Friedman, Vanessa Renan, John Sundberg, Art Bennett, Christopher Lovely, and Roy Lewis. Please rise for the Aleno, page 586. This week, we observe the yahrzeits of Saul Mayer, Kurt Muhlfelder, Clarence M. Frankel Jr., Paul Paper, Boris Resnick, and Cheryl Hoffman Grion. In solemn testimony to that unbroken faith which links generations one to another, let us now join in the recitation of the Kaddish, page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shenei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol berechata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata ta'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlamo rabba min shemaya v'chayim alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who establisheth peace unto the heavens, grant peace and comfort in the hearts of all who mourn, and let us say, amen. You may be seated. We want to welcome the people who are here virtually: Shirley Boyd, James Perry, Leonard Wells, Pinky and David Cherniak, Heidi Slowinski, Cole and Ellie Appleman, Calvin, Elizabeth Zimmerman, Marin, Elaine and Ron Berman, Linda and Eddie Blassingame, Marian Birkin, Harvey and Sandra Gandler, Maggie, my wife, Milton and Margaret Brown, Steve Mulfelder, Lynn DeLuca, Mel and Odette Sternberg, Karen and Himath Singh. We want to welcome them. We have announcements for October 20th, and Roy, are you the designated welcomer from the board? It's wonderful to have you here. I didn't know you were going to be here today. Wonderful to have you.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for the meaningful service, the thought-provoking, and spiritually deepening reflections.
Thank you.
Give us much to think about. For the music, both of you, and to all of you. I'm here at your art site. I'm here as the board member, but I'm also here because I find comfort in however few or many of us there are to be among brothers and sisters of the Spirit as we are in this very, very troubling time. So many emotions and so much hurt and so much churning, you know. So the announcements for Friday, October 20th, the interfaith service scheduled for this Sunday, October 22nd at Government Street Presbyterian has been postponed. A new date will be set. The Mobile Area Jewish Federation is sponsoring a lunch and learn entitled Yom Kippur War at 50 on Sunday, October 22nd. That's this Sunday at 1:30 at Havas Hesed, the synagogue. The guest speaker will be Richard Pollard. The cost of the event is $15 for a lunch plate. You can purchase tickets through the link in the high notes. 2 pastors and a rabbi. Interfaith Bible study will be hosted next Thursday, October 26th at 5:30 p.m. at Government Street Presbyterian. And this conversation will continue to go through the story of Joseph from the different faith perspectives. Please join us for our special Shabbat Seder next Friday, October 27th at 6 p.m. It's not a Passover Seder, called a Shabbat Seder. We will combine the basic service, discussion, and dinner. If you plan to join, please bring food for your family and enough to share with 4 more people. Contact Alex to RSVP, and I presume any questions until then, Priscilla probably can answer them for you. And please send in your submissions to the Veterans Day event booklet. We're asking for everyone to confirm their own or their relative's name, highest rank achieved, branch of service, and dates or time periods they served. I was at that Veterans Day service last year. Gave a talk about the veteran, my late uncle, my namesake, who was a Marine, and the whole event was very moving and very consoling. You know, and those are words, comfort and consolation, that we all look for and hope for these days. So Shabbat Shalom.
We should put the announcements for the archives, right?
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Just kidding. I know it looks like we're few in number here, but if you take the people who are here virtually, and we actually have 35 people in attendance for tonight. We just have a lot of people online and couples and so forth. So it's wonderful to have the people here virtually. If those who are there virtually, I know some are in another state, it's impossible. I know for some, it's difficult to drive because it's dark. But for those of you who are online, who are able to drive or able to come at night, or even would like a ride, perhaps maybe we can arrange such things. We would, of course, like to have people here in person. Just a word about next week. Next week it's going to be very different. We're not going to have a formal service. We will say Kaddish, we'll say some prayers, but it will be more like a Friday night dinner than anything. In other words, we won't have a formal service. We're going to try something just a little bit different. It's going to be potluck. We did this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had just a wonderful gathering after services, and we thought, gee, why don't we try to get more people? And we're going to push this with the school, and we're going to try to advertise this throughout the week. I myself, just personally, not just being a rabbi, but had just a wonderful time, and thought we would expand it to make like a Friday night dinner, like many of us grew up with, or many of us had the experience of a beautiful Shabbat dinner, lighting candles and so forth. And we're going to try to recreate that here and build and strengthen our ties to one another. And want to thank Priscilla for really taking the initiative and the lead on this. So thank you for
But
that.
it was such a great idea. It was so easy to
Yeah.
plan after you suggested it.
Yeah, no, I think I really urge everyone to try to come to that. We're going to conclude our service first with the Kiddush and Motzi, and I'm going to ask Anne, another board member who's also the chair of our education committee, to lead us in the Kiddush and Motzi, and then we will conclude with Eli Eli, followed by the benediction.
Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu Shabbat kacho be'ahava uvratzon in kilanu zikaron lemaseh vereshit ki hu yom tehila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu vakarta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kacheka be'ahava uvratzon in katanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
You may be seated.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Very nice ONED following services in the library. We're going to conclude our service with the singing of Eli Eli, which is on page 653, I believe. Let's make sure. No, it's not.
I think it's 6. Maybe it's the next page. No, it's the very bottom. 650.
654, we have it. 653, excuse me.
Shelo yegaber
please rise for an unusual benediction? In his second inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln observed that both parties to the Civil War read the same Bible and prayed to the same God, and each invokes his aid, capital H, God's aid, against the other. It may seem strange that any men should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces. But let us judge not, that we be not judged. The Almighty has his own purposes. Let us learn from these words the possibilities that our own thoughts, the own things that guide our lives, that we be open and remain open to those who are different, whose views and whose values may be different from ours. Shabbat Shalom.